Okay, so first, something very, very practical. I've been watching this whole time, and I don't know about other people, but I have an astigmatism, so I tend to be very conscious of issues of light and glare and shadow. And often if things are backlit, it's a problem for me, or if things are in shadow, I have a really hard time seeing them. And the whole time I've been seeing, here's the light. So it isn't just me, we've been reading in the dark. Right? Okay. So I don't sound terribly like a diva as I slowly move myself. And you tell me, where can you see me really good. Well? Is that good?
That's great.
Okay. So Emily, what I'm going to say to you, especially because I sat there in the audience earlier thinking, I'm going to look like such an asshole saying I want to be in the spotlight. Don't we all say those things to ourselves? And yet, we write to share, to be heard, to know that we are not alone. And there was some point in my life where I remember beginning, because I haven't stopped it yet, but beginning to try to stop hiding my light under a bushel. Because I realized that if you stop hiding your light under a bushel, then you are making a pool of light. That means maybe someone else can stand in that light long enough that they can let their light shine. And it seems to me that an open mic, these kinds of events, what Peter has done in this community is to create pools of light for all of us to be in. So I'm not an asshole. So I would like to read how I'm going to organize. Actually, first I'm supposed to say Kathy sends her regrets. And I happen to be able to be here in town, although this is always my town. I lived here 25 years. I've been gone for 4 years, so I still believe this is where my heart is. But it worked out that I could do this in Kathy's place. All of you know and love Kathy, as do I. I prefer to be sitting in the audience hearing Kathy too. But you were doing me the great favor of allowing me to read in her stead and to feel like I am home. And to practice some new poems as well as to celebrate. You'll be the first people I'm reading from my new book to. It is at the printer. The publisher says it'll be in the world shortly. And I am very honored to share some of these with you. And so I'm going to read, I think, 4 poems from the book, some new poems, and then close with 4 poems from the book. The title of the book is also the title of one of the poems, and I'm going to begin with that. It's called Rig or Death. I'm even, just look at that. This is an arc, I can ruin it. Rig or Death and Hoist Another. And the 3 poems that follow this from different places in the book I've chosen to open with because they'll echo each other, I hope in some ways that might entertain you. At the Black Abbot on High Street, drinking single malt, it was Scotland, a minute's walk to the North Sea, the guy next to me might have felt he was a cliche too, just back from a 3-week stint on an oil rig, starting his 14 days home, divorced, and on his own. He was a crane operator and wore small round glasses on his bony bent nose, looking at me over the rim, grinning with a loose mouth, teeth askew, and talked fast, showing me his tattoos. Inside his lower lip, Mom. An oilman's cartoon on his shoulder, a sun on his belly, and only joked about the 2 trees flanking his groin to make me penis look larger, he said. How could I not be won over? And clinked glasses, cheered with him as if I knew where I was and what I was doing there. month after the Gulf Coast rig blew, for me to think of that guy, to wish I'd kissed the coin he tossed in the air. Heads I'd stay, tails go. Had done something besides laugh. I think of the trees on his thighs I don't really believe existed, but mostly of his good humor. What a fine time he gave me, a girl on the loose in a town bar in a far town, glad to be disassembled from the rigging of her own life. What matter that all he wanted was connection, to recover from weeks of living above water, of hoisting things from one place to another. Scotch, whiskies, smoke comes from peat, mouthfeel, relies on the size and shape of the stills. Oil is distilled too, as are memories. Each time retold, reshaped, as the bangs and nicks of mind change. The mind a kind of still as well. And each time we tell something, we burn, the way peat is burned. Details like smoke added back to the kiln, increasing the flavor. It took me a while to recall my rigger, tatted and grimy, though he smelled of soap. Did he? I can't quite recall. And did anyone die in the Gulf Coast disaster? Of course, 11. But I never met any of them. Peat has many uses. It stabilizes flood zones, it amends soil, it can be cooked on, warmed by, but is dangerous when left unattended, can catch fire. Like oil, which comes from similar basic matter, things that have lived and then died. Peat on the tongue is hard to describe, like a memory that won't quite latch there at the back of the mind's throat, green in a dark U, settling in your chest. Maybe this is why bodies are so often buried there. 700 bogmen have been recovered. My nameless rigger is not a bogman. The 11 in the Gulf Coast died, some just missing, blogs replacing bodies, repeating the same words. So sorry, loss, responsibility. The North Sea is connected to the Gulf Coast by so many miles of water, my mind cannot contain any of it. When I left my rigger at the bar, his coin having failed him, I stood a little drunk on the beach, picking up small stones I could carry home in just a pocket, pebbles really, greens and reds, that puddle now in a small dish on my desk, maybe 100 like tiny eggs. Is this what we resort to? Organic souvenirs, hidden honeys, seeds, and plants we smuggle from the places we've been. Why we plant our children's lost teeth in the garden, sift death ashes into rivers and oceans, stand on the edge of wide water, facing it or rowing over it or churning below it or building platforms above it, as if we might claim some control. And maybe why we drink, why we pay for the rarest malts, the most smoke and wood, why we hoist another one, nosing and tasting, taking sips and rolling our lost histories around the tongue so they penetrate and distill the scarred membranes we all hide inside our mouths.